Good. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Here.
Mr. Bateman?
Here.
Mr. Blair?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Ori?
Here.
Here. Mr. Ping?
Here.
Welcome, everyone. With us tonight, we have our Director of Finance, Mark Medler, Assistant City Manager, Corey Wright, Clerk of Council, Misty Clark, City Manager, Dave Kennedy, City Solicitor, Joe Braun, and our Chief of Police, Michael Gabrielson. Also with us, we have former council members Todd Osborne and Pat Mays. So welcome, everyone. First order of business is open forum. Larry Roberts. Mark, is that?
Madam Mayor, President, question is, traffic light down there at Carl Brown Way, North Carl Brown Way, need to have an arrow for traffic. Some will be going one way, and we go towards Eagles, you have to sit there and wait. I think there should be an arrow put there where you can go ahead and make a left-hand turn.
Where are you talking coming from, like the
Up and
canoe
over the
livery?
bridge, and you go to make a left-hand turn. You have to sit there for the longest time.
Oh, okay. So on West Loveland, making a left onto Carl Brown.
Yeah.
I got you. I've got you.
I know. I've heard people talk about they need to put an arrow here. That's what I'm here for. See what can be done.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Next is review and approval of minutes from September 27th, 2022 City Council meeting. Are there any changes to that?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, we have a second reading of an ordinance. Go ahead and read the ordinance.
Resolution setting forth services that will be provided by the City of Loveland.
No. The second,
Pardon me.
there you go.
Ordinance amending the classification for the position of Finance Clerk and repealing Ordinance 2022-87.
Any comment on the ordinance? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Ordinance 105 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
All right, Mr. Braun, you want to explain this?
Well, you may recall that on your last agenda, we passed a resolution setting forth services related to the annexation of the vacant lot that's on Kemper Road and backs up to Hopewell. We submitted that petition to the Hamilton County Board of Commissioners, and after the engineer's office reviewed it, they determined that there were some issues with the engineering survey. As a result of that, the commissioners chose to remove that from their agenda rather than giving us an opportunity to amend it. So as a result of that, it started the annexation process over again, which means we've now gone to the engineering firm that did the drawings, had them update those, refiled a new petition, which then means we have to pass a new resolution for services. We could have used the old one had it been amended, but since it was withdrawn, we have to do a new one. So this is the exact same resolution saying you're going to provide services to the undeveloped property that we already own and service in the event that it's ever developed in the future.
And there's nothing we need to do on our end to withdraw the original resolution that we passed?
No, we don't need to because that related to a petition that's no longer in existence. This relates to the new one.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Hart.
Was there any financial impact based on we didn't have to hire a new firm to do anything, to resurvey, do anything?
No, and Dave, I don't believe that the changes that they made that we were billed for those. I think it was all part of the original. Yeah.
So we weren't billed for anything new.
And there's no fee to file either.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Read the resolution, please.
Resolution setting forth services that will be provided by the City of Loveland to the owners of real property that include a parcel located in Sims Township, Hamilton County, if such area is annexed to the City of Loveland, and stating an approximate date by which such services will be available if annexed.
Any question on the legislation? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Resolution 106 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. So we have before us tonight, finally, a demolition grant agreement from Claremont County in the state of Ohio to authorize expenditure of funds to tear down the mobile station at 106 West Loveland. This is a sub-grant agreement with the Claremont County Land Bank, which formed after our deal with the Adams County Land Bank was consummated, and they took possession of the site. The land bank did receive the award, the grant award from the state. The state's got 88 counties. I guess they were working alphabetically, so we got fortunate in that regard. And so now we have the grant agreement from the county. And in looking at this, the most expeditious way to do this is really for us to bid this out independent from their process through a subrecipient agreement in lieu of letting the county bid each one of their projects out. So with that, we already have an environmental consultant engaged from our prior actions, and then they're going to assist us with the bid document, and this would set the grant amount of $85,681.50, accept the grant, and allow us to proceed. So I would request approval of the legislation.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Blair?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Wright, will the consultant have the responsibility for making sure that once the remediation is done, it is to full standards? And
So there's multiple parts of that question. So what I will tell you is this part will involve there's active tanks, and then there's tanks that are abandoned in place, which are subject to a known release. That is the known release that we've referred to from the 1990s. This consultant has to test these tanks, the ones that had active fuel, that they were constantly using, the newer tanks. When they pull those out to decommission those tanks as part of this particular process. The demolition will include decommissioning of the tanks, demolition of the structure, retaining walls, and all the tanks. And that includes the new tanks that were being used and the decommissioned tanks that were abandoned in place. After that, we have to do monitoring and potentially additional abatement on the prior contaminant from 1993. But this gets the site cleared, ready, and then we just have to make sure there isn't any other contamination, or we have to do some additional monitoring to make sure that prior release, you get a no further action on that. And this is one part of the grant. This is one grant funding source that we were really driving at, the demolition grant. The other part of this why we selected the Adams County Land Bank is because of their success with the abandoned gas station grant program. And we will be eligible for that once we jump through a couple more hoops. Then we'll make application for that. And that will give us access to a huge pile of money to fully, to dig out all the contaminated soil, do monitoring, the whole 9 yards. So it's conceivable that more abatement will occur, just depending on what is left in the ground. Nobody really knows, because the prior owner ran out of money before he could finish the testing. So at the end of the day, this will get us a long way there, and it will get the active tanks out of the ground.
just to confirm, this grant will get the tanks that are being used out of the ground,
and the old
old tanks.
Everything, the whole site.
How many tanks are there?
There's 3. I think there's a demo plan in there. There's I think there's 3 old tanks in place, and I believe there are 2 active tanks in place.
3 old, 2 active.
Yes.
Okay. One more question.
I may be off a tank or 2, but
Either way.
Yeah.
One more question, and I thank you for your time. None of this remediation ongoing that may have to come back, including digging up the dirt, will prevent us from configuring, paving, and setting up the right turn lane.
It should not. Quite frankly, based upon where, and talking to Mr. Kennedy, where the monitoring wells are, they're out of the way of where the turn lane is going to be.
Okay.
So it really, because it's the plume was moving this way, And so with that, I think that, once we get the stuff out of the ground, we get the building down, and that's why we're under design now. In fact, we had a great meeting with TEC today to kick that off. So, at the end of this, we'll be able to, I see no reason why we shouldn't be able to proceed with the construction of that. And for that, even while we're doing work, just outside the boundary of that. So,
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
And just to be clear, the demolition costs are likely to exceed the grant award?
They could.
Unlikely to?
They could. That was based on an estimate that the county's environmental consultant prepared on our behalf as part of the grant packaging and program. I will tell you, we were the biggest by far grant in the entire county. So we chewed up, out of 500,000, we're going to chew up close to 20% of that. So we are thankful for the county's, commitment to helping us clean up this site and the importance to the city. So.
Any other questions, comments? Read the legislation, please.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into a subrecipient grant agreement between the Claremont County Land Reutilization Corporation and the City of Loveland, Ohio, further authorizing the city's participation in the Ohio Building Demolition and Site Revitalization Program and accepting a grant award in the amount of $85,681.50 in furtherance of testing and demolition activities to be completed at 106 West Loveland Avenue, Loveland, Ohio, 45140, Claremont County parcel ID number 2006002.028A.
Any questions or comments on the legislation? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart.
Yes.
Resolution 107 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Mr. Medler?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Every year, Hamilton County provides us with an estimate for upcoming property tax revenues. This includes our general fund and our fire-related funds. Just an estimate that they think that they'll bring in, and we have till the end of this month to accept those estimates, and we typically put those into our 2023 budget. It's usually a little conservative, but it does have some growth in there. So, like I said, these are just estimates that they provide for us, and it's a housekeeping item for us to accept this.
All right. Any questions or comments?
What,
Yes.
what was the gross amount of the estimate?
So for the general fund, and it includes any rollback in it, it was $1,269,450. This would be a 2% increase on what we brought in this year.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Read the resolution.
Resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission of Hamilton County, Ohio, and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 5705.34.
Comment on the legislation. Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps? Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Resolution 108 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Kennedy?
So we're pretty much in full budget mode at this point in time, and typically when we begin the budget process, we would plan to have a CIP presentation in front of council because, to be honest with you, many of these projects relate to city council goals and furthering plans of 4 that you've completed in the last 4 years. So we think it's important to bring the plans for the project forward. Have Cindy, our city engineer, and Scott, our public works director, come in and go over the various projects. We just have never been able to get this far along with the CIP, and we've already presented the CIP to the Finance Commission. Made a few tweaks to it, but 2023, if all of our funding sources come in, shapes up to be one of the best capital and programs we've had in many, many years. And so what I was asking is simply for council to schedule a work session review the 2023 CIP for 6 p.m. before your November 7th meeting. Be doing a little bit of a presentation.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Kennedy? Would someone care to make the motion requested?
I'll move to schedule a presentation session to review the 2023 capital improvement program for November 7th at 6 p.m. here at City Hall.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. And just a prior point for Councilman Blair, it's actually 4 tanks, and they call them orphan tanks.
There are
Because
4 orphan tanks and 2 live
active.
tanks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And they're all going to
They're all coming out. Yes.
and fully remediated.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, sir.
So we have a request for council to set a public hearing to consider a zoning text amendment pursuant to Chapter 1115, Section 111507B of the Planning and Zoning Code for the City of Loveland, Ohio. So this is a zoning text amendment, and again, we won't go too much into that because we'll have the discussion during the public hearing. But this is a zoning text amendment that was done responsive to a moratorium, a couple of moratoriums that deal with recreation and warehouse uses. So with that, the text amendments have been provided to council. There's been a memo that explains the rationale for that. It's been provided for council, and we would request that council, the planning, I would say the Planning Commission did recommend adoption as presented at its prior meeting. And so now we're advancing this to council, and you have a copy of the final action notice on that. So we are requesting the council set a public hearing to occur on, how was this worded? I think there's a
November
meeting.
7th.
At November 7th at or about 7 o'clock p.m. to consider the proposed text amendment.
All right. Any questions, comments? Someone care to make the motion?
I'll move to set a public hearing on Monday, November 7th, 7 p.m. to consider the proposed zoning text amendment recommended for adoption by the Planning and Zoning Commission pursuant to Chapter 1115, Section 115.07 of the Planning and Zoning Code for the City of Loveland, Ohio.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Mr. Ori,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
So tonight is, per the councilmanic, is a time for the update on city council goals and disposition of city and CIC property. I don't have any updates since the last meeting since your May 24th update. As far as council goals, the update just briefly, based on some late address items that have addressed city council goals. The city's goal of being sort of the leader of regional support for the a secondary bridge somewhere in the area to help relieve traffic. Corey continues to lead that charge, and again, everybody knew this is probably going to be on the next couple council goals because this is a long-term project. But that whole, how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time, and I think that's what Corey's doing here. So just keep chunking away, taking the lead, not letting it go away. Sorry. I think we just touched on where we're at with the mobile station. And Corey mentioned that the turn lane really does not use a lot of that property, if you remember the drawing. And so I feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to move forward with the turn lane. We had a meeting today with the engineer as part of the 2023 capital improvement program. It's one of our feature projects, I would say, in the 23 budget. Another one, pursue the goal of pedestrian and bike lane connectivity within the city. City Council at the very end of 2021 quickly amended the budget to throw in funding to do a design in 2022, if you recall. We sort of hustled and got the budget amended. So that council did to allow us to spend 2022 designing the sidewalk and storm drape improvements from the most basic terms from St. Clement up Loveland Miamiville Road. And that has been designed, and we've broken into 3 phases, and the first phase begins this year. So that is on your 2023 CIP, and what is also included, you won't see it in the CIP because studies aren't in there, is there's engineering allotted to begin the design of sidewalks up 48 to start connecting our Warren County community. So that's all towards your goal of pursuing the pedestrian bike trail community remediation at Chestnut. We could go on forever. Corey's on top of that. That's just keeps moving along. We're very hopeful that we'll be wrapping up the purchase of 501 Loveland Madeira Road. We've submitted funding to get a road, an access road from Chestnut. So not only removing the building, but connecting it physically with the road and potentially a roundabout or something in that area that would be TIF. So they just keep chugging away. Corey keeps chugging away at the Chestnut Street project. Consider a goal to have an annual budget of $1.25 million in your road paving. Your 2023 CIP continues that. If you recall, our ultimate goal is to get to 850. That's where we should be at. But since we're so deferred, we're not exactly sure when we're going to do that. But we hope to for the next next 5 years, we'll keep it at 1.2. And I'm trying to make a goal of myself to not use the road program for other things like parking lots and stuff, really trying to focus it on the roads. The heights is going to be a big part of next year's road program. Explore ways to stabilize the water fund to enable water main replacements. I presented a proposed 3-year water rate schedule to the Finance Commission at their meeting last week. They asked me to make an amendment. That amendment will be presented back to them. Strengthen and enhance public relations. What can you say? Chris is right on top of that. The biannual newsletters being prepared to go out. She's made multiple videos. The worst, of course, was me on the Public Works building, but she's done one with LPD, which was great. She did one for Sustainability Council. She's really, she's on top of that. Almost finished. Ensure new technology purchases. Consider Chief Gabrielson is on target with the city's first body cameras. We've submitted for grant funding to have the mirror version of that for the mobile video recorders. Plus, if you recall, we have now completed the installation of GPS, emergency GPS units in all of the city's traffic signals. So whenever a car comes by, so that's complete. And then the last thing I have is we've done a kickoff on the design of Station 63. So that's that.
Okay. Any
That,
comments or
like
questions?
3 minutes.
Mr. Hart?
I just have a few comments tonight based on the goals, and I feel compelled a little bit to talk about what we all think of in our area as our biggest concern, that's traffic. And I want to commend the approach of Mr. Kennedy and Mr. Wright, and our city manager and our city engineer. We've taken several different steps over the last year or so, several years, to improve traffic. And I think it's important to point some of these things out. And I think that taken as a whole, you can see the steps that are being made. When you take them, look them individually, they seem small, they seem maybe inconsequential, but taken as a whole, they make big differences. An extra lane coming in up here, an extra turn lane, the technology to assist with our emergency vehicles in town, making their entrance and exit more smooth, the adjustment to traffic signals that's happened around town, the sidewalk projects that are getting off the ground to improve connectivity to downtown, inclusive of the bike lanes. We're talking about the comprehensive plan project. These all amount to important incremental changes that in the end make a very large difference in all of our quality of life in terms of driving around town. So those goals mean something. The people here working at City Hall are working very hard at it. And I think that while each individual thing, if you just hear one thing, one snippet here in an individual meeting, it might not seem that big, but in reality, all these things are making giant changes downtown, and I appreciate the work that's going on, and I'm looking forward to continuing in all these smaller changes to make bigger holistic changes moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Anyone else? Mr. Bateman?
I agree that it's always, Dave, first of all, you did a great job of just doing the quick wraparound coverage of all the great stuff that we're doing.
I was told to speed it up.
Yeah, because that was, you hit the highlights for sure. There's a lot of stuff that is pretty amazing in its own right. I don't want to be like a big damper on that, but I was just curious about some of the stuff that the individual items that hadn't been addressed on here. Just picking one of them, for example, the establishing like a maintenance fund, preventative maintenance budget for 5 year. I know it's budget season for finance. Do you know if that's something that it might be planned for later on in the firm?
I don't believe we added. They have their own version. They have a Finance-O-Matic, and I don't believe I've added that. And we'll put that on the agenda where they meet next Tuesday. So we'll get that on there. It'll just be, yes, Mark, I'm sorry, I'll forget. Okay. So
I just noticed, I mean, we've from my time, I recognize that we're always talking about the great condition all of our equipment is in, and we do take good care of it and all that stuff. But at the same time, I know we've also recently bought a lot of new equipment coming in, so I think it would be prudent to create a more sophisticated schedule so that we can plan on that accordingly. But again, I think we win awards all the time from our financial prowess and careful, cautious approach to things and planful mindset. So I'm not doubting that. I was just curious if there might be an update on that topic sometime in the future.
I will update that related to the CIC and the Heights. We're going to be doing a video about all the different programs that the city's done in the Heights, sort of centered around the grant that we got for the tot lots. So Krista's working on that.
Thank you. That's all.
Yes, Mr. Ori?
Larry with the Eagles brought up the left turn lane or the signal down here at Carl Brown. One of the things that John didn't mention was the left turn lane that we put up at Broadway, and what a difference that makes. I come down that hill all the time, so I see it, and I go up. It's a left turn lane. You have, I don't know what that's set for, 30 or 45 seconds or so, but it clears out that lane. So
yeah,
I think Larry's suggestion has good merit. So.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I would just say we all get together for one day in February to come up with these goals for 2 years, and we have the easy job, and then staff's left with trying to implement all of our grandiose ideas. And when we get these updates, you see how much work they put in addition to everything else they're doing every day, all day, and keep this city going. So congratulations on all your hard work, and thank you. All right. Was that it for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So next is a memorandum. We have a request to allow Finance Commission member Greg Alsbach to attend actually the October 18th, 2022 meeting remotely. That just takes a motion, I assume. Would someone care to make a motion consistent with that?
I move to allow Mr. Alsbach to attend the October 18th Finance Commission meeting remotely.
Second.
All right. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right. There are various committee minutes and reports. Anybody have any comments on any of those? The last item is a memorandum. Mike Meldon, who has done a fantastic job serving on both our Parks and Recreation Board and the Tree and Environment Committee, which I think he was the chairman of that. For personal reasons, had needed to resign from both, but cannot thank him enough for all his work and tireless effort on behalf of the city in both of those. Especially, I would say, Tree and Environment. That was sort of a quiet committee until Mike really got involved, and they've done quite a bit in the last few years. So much thanks to him. But with his departure, we now have one opening on Parks and Recreation. I am suggesting that Ms. Sherry Hamlin be appointed to fill that vacancy on that board for a partial term set to expire on December 31st, 2022. With regard to the Tree and Environment Committee, it is one vacancy, but I'm asking that we appoint 2 individuals, one of whom is Jacob Marsh, who is sitting in the back row there. Thank you, Jacob. And also Lisa Freeman, who is the chair of our Parks and Recreation Board, would like to serve on Tree and Environment for partial terms that will expire on December 31st, 2023. Again, with all the work they're doing, I don't think it hurts to have an additional person that's willing and able to help with that particular committee, so that's why I'm recommending an additional appointment. So I believe we can do just one motion for all of these appointments if anyone cares to discuss. Yes.
I just have a quick question. Will the appointment of Ms. Hamlin for an abbreviated term in any way restrict her from being appointed for a full term?
It would not.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Someone care to make a motion consistent with what I have on this memo? It won't be our vice mayor because he's lost
I'll move
his way.
to approve the committee appointments to the Parks and Recreation Board and the Tree and Environment Committee.
I second.
Thank you. All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, upcoming events. St. Columban's Fall Festival is this weekend, Friday from 5 to 11 and Saturday from 6 to 11. It will include live entertainment, fireworks, raffles, and more. The stores of Jackson Street Market will host a Witches Night Out Sip and Shop this Friday from 5 to 8. This Saturday, the Seth Mitchell Hero 5K returns to Loveland for its 13th year to remember Captain David Seth Mitchell. He was killed in action in Afghanistan in 2009 and was a Loveland School attendee. All proceeds benefit the Captain Seth Mitchell Memorial Scholarship through the Loveland Schools Foundation. You can register for that at sethmitchellhero5k.org. Also this Saturday, the Loveland Sims Fire Department will be raising funds for the Karen Wellington Foundation. This foundation provides vacations, relaxing day spas, concerts, and other fun-only activities for women and families living with breast cancer. Our firefighters will be on West Loveland Avenue at the Bike Trail Crossing and the East Broadway Trail Crossing from 9 to noon for a Fill the Boot campaign. Later that evening, the firefighters will be offering table service at Ramsey's Trailside from 5 to 9. And I apparently will be the guest bartender for that event. So come on down to Ramsey's Trailside from 5 to 9.
The
And
fox in the hen house.
If I remember correctly, isn't it 10% of the proceeds, I believe, that Ramsey's is donating to the Karen Wellington Foundation from that evening? Let's see here. Moving on. Saturday, October 22nd from 3 to 6 at Nisbet Park. The Loveland Music Boosters will be offering live music and opportunities to learn more about music and arts in the school district. Also on October 22nd, the businesses of Jackson Street Market will host a pet-themed day, Tales on the Trail, with pet-themed craft vendors, Cincinnati Zoo Crew, Miles Ahead Animal Rescue with pet adoptions, live Cat in the Hat characters. The Loveland Valentine ladies will be reading Cat in the Hat books at tables, pet-themed photo opportunities, fabulous funnel cakes, food truck, and a pet parade judged by the Valentine ladies. That's what we have going on in the next few weeks. Does anyone have anything else to add?
Blank.
All right, so we have an executive session. Would someone care to make the motion consistent with that request?
I'll move to adjourn to executive session under Revised Code Section 121.22G3 to conference with counsel related to pending and imminent litigation, and Section 121.22G2 to consider the purchase of property for public purposes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Mr. Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Good. Could we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ori?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay.